Um, so bonjour to everyone from around the Great Lakes watershed. My name is Ann Moser, and I am education coordinator and a librarian for Wisconsin Sea Grant. And I am director of the Wisconsin Water Library at UW-Madison. And in this capacity, I do a lot on Great Lakes literacy, which involves advancing knowledge and understanding. And as a librarian and as an education coordinator, this project really does bring those two jobs together, because to me, using the power of stories and the voices of the people that are involved in the Great Lakes is such a powerful way to go down a journey of understanding our watershed. Before we start, and I apologize if you've heard this 2 or 3 times now, but I do think it's important to share thanks on this really large project. Um, the Great Lakes Great Read was born out of a very informal group of people that are passionate about our watershed and wanting to advance knowledge about it. And so we have a very informal steering committee that has been meeting over the last year or two. And they have been just really helpful in setting directions and setting the tone on this pilot project. And of course, my gratitude to the Wills organization in Wisconsin. They provided us some seed money that in fact is supporting this particular webinar tonight. So we're really grateful for that seed money. Also, my big gratitude to my colleagues at Wisconsin Sea Grant, especially Sarah, Tom, and Madeline, that did a lot of work to get the website going. And it's just absolutely beautiful, and it's filled with resources. So I hope as you've been involved in the project or thinking about the Great Lakes, that you go there and check out some of the great resources that are there. I just want to thank my colleague with Wisconsin Library Association. So here in Wisconsin, we're welcoming people from across the watershed. And here in Wisconsin, we're partnering with the Library Association to do this project. So Laura Sauser has been a really great advocate. She's really passionate about a one book, one community read. And I think now I have her passionate about the Great Lakes. So thank you to Laura for all her help. And then to Inger Schultz across the pond, across Lake Michigan. Inger runs the Library of the Great Lakes, and she has been a big advocate of the project and also already done some great programming in Michigan. And additionally, I thank our authors. They've been really patient as we've gotten this off the ground. The watershed is quite large. We have two countries, 2 provinces, 8 states. It's a big undertaking to think about drawing all of us together as we can to read about the Great Lakes. So thank you to Joanne and Sally for patience and helping us navigate a lot of different things. And tonight, I really especially want to give a miigwech to Joanne. She has gifted us the story of Josephine-ba, and we'll learn about her tonight. But she also gives us many stories of her own experience. And through some work with the book club online, I've been gifted a lot of stories from Native people, and I feel like these stories are treasures to me, and they help me to understand more about the watershed. And so I just want to give her a special thanks for sharing her wisdom with us tonight. Okay, so let's start because this is the fun part. And tonight we're having a conversation with Joanne Robertson, and she's the author of The Water Walker, among many other books. And she has a very powerful bio, and I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself. Oh, and The Water Walker is our children's book selection for Great Lakes Great Read for 2024-25. I get a little tired by this hour of the night, so I apologize. I'm stumbling along here. So Joanne lives, writes, and draws beside the Goulet River in Ontario, Canada. She is Anishinaabe Cree and was adopted as a baby by her French, German, Canadian parents. She was raised on a farm in southern Ontario and was reunited with her Anishinaabe family in her 20s. She began helping the focus of her book, grandmother Josephine-ba Mandamin, the water walker, in 2011. Boy, time is flying along here. And to me, remarkably, she received her degree in fine arts from Algoma University and the Shingwak Kenumag Gameg at age 50. So that's remarkable. And that is a school of excellence on Anishinaabe education. So, I'm going to I'm going to turn this over to Joanne. And of course, I invite her to introduce herself in her traditional way, if that is what she'd like to do. And also just remind everybody to please pose any questions or thoughts you have in the Q&A. So, okay, Joanne, I'll leave it to you.
Okay, Miigwech Chan. I'm going to start sharing my screen right away. So I will do that right now. Screen, start broadcast, and keynote. And there we go. So thank you everyone for coming tonight, Miigwech. And I'm gonna start reading. She already introduced me, but I'm gonna do it again because I made this fancy map. So Misko and Ungo Kwe Indigenous, Mikizi and Dodem, Guli ZB and Donjaba, Ojibwe and Anishinaabe Kwe and Dao. So like Anne mentioned, I was adopted and I have ties to 3 communities. I should start by saying my spirit name is Red Star and I'm Bald Eagle Clan. That's what I mentioned in the language. So the 3 communities that I have ties to, I was born in Windsor, Ontario, and I grew up on a farm outside of Windsor. So in that county, we're surrounded by Lake Erie, the Detroit River, and Lake St. Clair. And I also have ties to Atikamekw and Anishinaabe, which is my community by Sudbury, Ontario. And I mentioned, I think Anne mentioned that I met my family in my 20s. I'm 64 now, so I've known them longer than I haven't. And then now I live in Guli River, which is north of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. And I can see the river outside my office window. And in the summer, we're a short drive to the Lake Superior shore, especially Batchewana Bay. So tonight, I'd like to spend my time with you sharing a few stories about my friend and teacher, Josephine-ba Mandamin, the water walker. And I also learned not too many years ago that we're also cousins related through her husband, Andrew Mandamin. The photo on the left is the very first time I met her. And it was August in 2007. And we were at the Three Fires Confederacy gathering, which was held in Garden River First Nation, which is just east of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. And the photo on the right is we were at the Mush Hole, or the Mohawk Institute Indian Residential School reunion in Six Nations in Southern Ontario, and that was in 2018. And we had to leave early because she wasn't feeling well, and that was our last long distance road trip together. It was shortly after that time that we learned that she had pancreatic cancer. And she walked on a day after her birthday, which was February 22nd, 2019. So Grandma Josephine-ba Mandamin left us many footsteps for us to follow in. And that's what I'd like to share with you tonight. Some of the journeys that she went on for the water, for us, and for all life. So I'd like to start with a prophecy that got her starting her water walks. So this is a quote from her diary. It says, "Our Grand Chief Nibi was the initiator of an idea. During a Sundance ceremony at Pipestone, Minnesota, Budweiwaden told of a prophecy which has come to be. The abuses of the water will result in severe shortages, and only those that can afford it will have water to drink. And if we don't do anything about it, our water will cost the same as gold, ounce for ounce. As in all prophecies, there is hope. In this prophecy, the hope is in the word if." In ending his teaching, he hauntingly asked the audience, "What are you going to do about it?" So what she did with the Mother Earth Water Walkers was walk for the water. And while they were walking around Lake Huron in 2005, she wrote this: "The journey with the pail of water that we carry is our way of walking the talk. We really don't have to say anything. Just seeing us walk is enough to make a person realize that, yes, we are carriers of the water. We are carrying the water for the generations to come. The next generation will be able to say, yes, our grandmothers and grandfathers kept this water for us." So on a cold and rainy Easter morning, Monday, Easter morning, it was Monday actually, they began the first annual water walk. And as I go through these Great Lakes slides, I'm going to continue to share a few quotes from her diary. If you wanted to read them in their entirety, you could go to motherearthwaterwalk.com. But I just took a few snippets out of them for you tonight. So she starts, "The experience was humbling. Words cannot fully describe what we were doing. We did it for the water, for the earth, for the animals, for the insects, for the trees, for all the two-leggeds. To remind all those we came across that the walk was for them, not us. The walk was for the next generations. We walked with the water for them also. They will know, as Mother Earth knows, that we walked with the water for all creation." And that Lake Superior, the walk started in Bad River, Wisconsin, and that's also where it ended. And it took them 36 days. It's on the screen there, but I'm not sure if you have little monitors, maybe you won't be able to read that. So the next Great Lake they walked around was Lake Michigan, and they did the top of it in 2004. And there. So she said, "Like our ancestors, the water walkers cut across Michigan from Walpole Island to Grand Traverse, and then up over Lake Michigan to Hannahville." She said, "Animals came out of their way to greet us, knowing we were there for a reason. In their uncanny instincts, they came forward and bade us their greetings. Horses came galloping to meet us. Chipmunks came in droves to see us. Dogs came and lifted their paws to reach out to us. And of course, the birds that sang for us and with us. The wind whispers and the trees beckoning their acknowledgement of our walk, and the waters shimmering their blessings on us." At this point, it seemed that only the animals in nature knew that we were walking for the water. So then it was Lake Huron in 2005, which took 26 days. They started in Sioux, Ontario, finished in Sioux, Michigan. And she wrote, "I sincerely believe that the message is for all people and not just for Aboriginal women and their partners. This message also has to go to the earthly powers. Our First Nation tribal leaders must take the step toward acting on their responsibility. Our elected government leaders must also enact policies to protect our waters and waterways." Eagle Staff Carrier Mike Najuan describes their day. Their day starts at 4 a.m. They start walking by 5:30 a.m. and ended at 9 p.m. sundown last night. Josephine, Violet, and Malvina are the three women who are carrying both the staff and the water as they walk. The staff, if the men of our lodge are unaware, is our responsibility to carry. They, the grandmothers, are walking with blisters on their feet in rain, snow, and hail, yet there was not one complaint. So Lake Ontario in 2006 took 12 days, and they started and finished at Niagara-on-the-Lake. Carol Hopkins wrote, "We just finished the send-off ceremony and it was absolutely awesome. Josephine is off to fill her copper pail with water from Lake Ontario and then begin the walk." Later in the afternoon, she wrote, later on the day, she wrote, "It was really hot this afternoon, about 29 Celsius or 84 Fahrenheit. And we were so thankful to cool off for a bit in the water at Seneca Nation Beach. We tobaccoed many, many rivers and streams." 2007, it was Lake Erie, and it took 15 days, starting and finishing in Fort Erie, Ontario. And she wrote, "To all our brothers and sisters, we must do the walk for the water. They walk with love for future generations. Blister upon blisters, they are not deterred." And then finally, the bottom of Lake Michigan, which took 17 days to complete. "Once the lower half is completed, the water walkers can say we have walked around all the Great Lakes. Our water is not for sale. This message will be carried this spring. The Great Lakes walks may be finished, but this year there has been much publicity that hopefully has made more people aware of our concerns. It feels good to be on the road home. I can hardly wait to see my grandson, but I will miss walking and meeting different people. Miigwech to all we met along the way. So the next walk was the St. Lawrence River in 2009, which took 15 days. On April 10th, which 3 days before they started the walk, she wrote, "Never fear the unknown." These words keep popping in my head today as I'm packing and hoping not to forget anything. Apprehension and wonderment creeps in from time to time because the journey is so great and monumental to me because I have never seen the St. Lawrence River other than in pictures. I do know that it has great meaning to the ancestors and the people who now live by the river. It is with such respect that I look to them for prayers and support. My father always said that one who is always fearful of going somewhere never gets anywhere. Such is my life as I journey, always remembering my father's words. On April 13th, the day one of the walk, at the end of the day, she wrote, "Send us some chapstick. Our lips are windburned. We'll get 3 to 4 hours of sleep now. Good night." And then May 17th, a couple weeks after the walk finished, she wrote, "From the moment I touched the St. Lawrence River, the feeling was akin to falling in love. I could only utter a thank you and gulped at the feeling of love in return. My love for the water is eternally sacred. I will go to any length to protect her and carry her message. I love you, Mama." We must keep a watch over the waters and the sky. We must begin to love one another. We must begin to help others understand the water. It is in our lodge teachings that water is above all else, the uniter, the healer, the caretaker, and all else we can never imagine. The end of a water walk is never the end. It's only the beginning of something that is not within our knowing. I rest in that thought because I'm always asked, now that the Great Lakes Basin walk is ended, what is your next walk? It's all about the water, not the walk. Whoever knows where the spirits will guide us. So many people report on the Great Lakes water walks that Grandma Josephine-ba led, but it's very few that mention her water walks from the 4 salt waters to the heart of Turtle Island, the Great Lakes Superior. But this is where she was led to walk next. One night, Grandma Josephine-ba emailed me, and all she wrote was, "Make me a map coming in from all directions." And that's all the detail that she gave me. Not knowing exactly what she wanted, I grabbed, I think this map was out of an atlas that we had in the house, and I made a copy of it, and I got a pen and a ruler out, and I drew the map with 8 directions coming in towards Lake Superior. And in my mind, I was thinking about all the clans coming together, plus the condor from in the south. Fortunately, she settled on only 4 directions, and it became the 2011 Turtle Island 4 Directions Water Walk. That's the year that I began working with Josephine-ba for the water, and it's also the year I introduced Spot, the orange GPS units on each of the water pails. And they began walking in the west from the Pacific Ocean, followed by walkers from the Gulf of Mexico. Then the Atlantic Ocean walkers headed out. Last were the Hudson Bay walkers. And Josephine-ba was at all the send-offs, and she carried the water at each send-off. And 64 days later, they all converged at Lake Superior. Because there were so many moving arms or legs to this walk, I introduced the GPS units to the water pails that year. I didn't know anything about them at the time, but a really nice salesman came and met with me and Grandma Josephine, and it ended up the head office in the States of the Spot people. They donated all the tracking for all the 4 spots, which is quite expensive. And we just had to pay for the each unit. And to this day, I spot for the water walkers on Turtle Island. And that basically means that I watch all my screens all day long. my messages from them and emails 24/7 and during a walk, and I help them out as much as I can from my home base. And I make morning and evening posts on the regular to their Facebook pages, sharing maps and photos and films of the day. And it's a really good job for someone who's Eagle Clan, flying overhead, looking out for them. So the first direction to set off during the 2011 walk was the western direction. And they had the longest distance to walk, so that's why they started first. And they had to walk over mountains, through the snow. The roads in the mountains, the shoulder was really super narrow, so it was quite dangerous. And then I remember when they were walking across the plains, it was really, really windy, so it was hard staying on the road. And the western direction to get from Olympia, Washington to Lake Superior took them 64 days. And the next direction to depart was the southern direction. And they left to the day, 1 year to the day after the devastating oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. So April 20th, they departed. And I remember it was really super hot and humid that day. And Grandma Josephine's knee was really bothering her. And they met all kinds of weather in the south. The humidity, the heat, the levees were threatening to burst because there was a lot of flooding down there. Going further north, it was super wet and windy. And then another story that I'll share with you a little bit later on. But it took the southern direction 54 days, 1,470 miles to walk from the Gulf to Lake Superior. Then the eastern direction headed out, carrying water from the Atlantic Ocean, and it took them 37 days. And they started in the east at the petroglyphs, and there wasn't any snow or ferocious rain or anything that I can recall. What I do remember, though, that there was tons of water in the form of tears in that direction. It was a really difficult journey. But each direction had their own unique challenges. The north was the last direction to start, and it was pretty chilly up there, as you can tell from the photo. And their journey took them 23 days, and they had to take the train from Winnipeg up to Churchill, and the tracks were flooded out. I think that was a common thing. But altogether, the train coming back down, and they walked from Winnipeg to Lake Superior. The whole journey in total took 23 days. So the four salt waters converged on June 11th in 2011. It took a total of 64 days and 6,372 miles and over 14 million footsteps. And we like to say that every footstep is a prayer. Sharon Day, one of the Nibi walkers, she started saying that, and it's true. So I remember I was really relieved to see the water walkers coming towards me. I don't have kids, but I can imagine what it would be like waiting for them to come home, because I was so relieved to see them, and they were battered and bruised, but they were all safe. And a bit more about being spot during the water walk, especially this water walk. I may have mentioned I slept with my MacBook, my landline, my cell phone 24/7. I got up with them and I went to bed after they were asleep. I triaged sometimes over 2,000 emails every 3 days. And I remember my email crashing a couple times because there were so many emails. And Josephine-ba called me Central Communications, and Sharon in the southern direction called me Queen of the Mothership, which I still really like. And I didn't sign up for the job as coordinator of this water walk. I'd never water walked before, so I wouldn't have signed up for it. But when we were at the lodge, and Grand Chief Eddie Bob Benet was announcing about the upcoming water walk. And he said, if you have any questions, you can ask the coordinator. And then he said my name. So that's how that happened. So after this water walk, I was feeling really battered and bruised too. But I'm really glad I did it, and I got to meet all the salt waters, and yeah. So here's a few photos from when the waters converged. You can see me, the top right photo, I'm kind of in the middle there wearing black. All these photos were taken by Jeff Bear, and Jeff is from Urban Res Productions out west, and he actually made a documentary about this water walk, but you can get some of it on YouTube. There's a few clips here and there, and it used to be shown on ABTN occasionally, but I'm not sure if it has been shown recently. And this is the 4 salt waters coming together into one, from the 4 smaller vessels into one big copper pail. And this is the next day when they were pouring the salt waters into Lake Superior. And a few more visuals from random photos from water walks. The top left is protecting their feet from blisters, or maybe she already had blisters. They have lots of ways, lots of different theories on how to protect themselves. Some of the walkers used to wrap their whole foot in duct tape, that gray tape, wearing 2 pairs of socks. They had all different things that they would try. And then in the center, that's just one of those beautiful pictures of, you know, getting up before the birds and walking. And then on the bottom left is a picture of a typical water walker's vehicle. And the one thing to think about this is you could be gone from your home for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and you have one suitcase and it's in this person's van, and this person has left rotation and gone to the bathroom or gone to get coffee for people, and you need a dry pair of socks or your raincoat or whatever. So there's lots of those little challenges that you might not think about for water walks. And on the right, this is them crossing the International Bridge. I believe this was 2015, and they were walking from Sioux, Ontario into Sioux, Michigan, and it was at 4 a.m. in the morning. And some of them were really nervous because I've lived on a border my whole life, but lots of them had never crossed this bridge or hadn't lived on a border. So there was some anxiety. But when they got to the other side, just as they were approaching the US side, on the banner above, all lit up in lights, it said "Welcome Water Walkers." So they felt better. But then a huge lightning bolt came down, hit the building. All the power went out. There was an instant downpour. So all the computers were out. There's no lights. There's nothing. It's raining like crazy. They don't know where they're going. But Chief Dean Sayers was there with them, and he has a good relationship with the border. And so he was able to get everyone through. And I left them after they touched up. I left them and drove back home, and I was almost home, got to the top of my road, and my phone started ringing, and it was the Eagle Staff carrier, Gabe. And he was saying, "We can't see anything. There's no street lights. There's nothing. Where am I going?" And so I had to try and guess how many steps or how far he had to walk until he took that one cut off on the other side of the bridge. And he managed to find it. And there were some tribal members waiting there in the park with breakfast for them. But it was a lot of excitement that morning. So here's a few more pictures. This is leaving the Gulf of Mexico on that really hot and humid morning, walking through some early morning fog. And then lots of days you're walking in the rain and chilled to the bone. And that's Mike and Beth. Mike has been on lots of water walks with Grandma Josephine-ba. So, and this is tornadoes. This happened in the southern direction in the south when Sharon Day was leading the walk by them, because Grandma Josephine had to leave to go prepare for the touch-up in the east. So on this day, this is called a super outbreak, and there were 175 tornadoes that ripped through there. And you can see the Blackfoot on the left. That's where the water walkers were walking. And on the right there, that's where that little pink dot is where President Obama visited the next day, because that's where there was a lot of destruction. So in 2015, 2017, those were two of her last big water walks that I spotted for. 2015, they walked from Matan, Quebec, and then went to Lake Superior. And then 2017, they did it in reverse. They started in Spirit Mountain, Duluth, and walked to Matan, Quebec, which is where the St. Lawrence opens up into the Gulf. And she also led water walks, Lake Monona in Wisconsin in 2012, Lake Winnebago in Wisconsin in 2015, and the Menominee River in Michigan and Wisconsin in 2016. And 4 weeks after her last big water walk in 2017, the Water Walker book was released. And none of us planned it that way. It was perfect timing. So now her sneakers took her to classrooms, bookstores, and libraries. 2 years, it takes a while to get a book published. So 2 years before that, I wrote and illustrated The Water Walker, and I had been off work on a medical leave for a while. And during that time, I decided that I wanted to draw and tell stories instead of the job that I was doing. So the day I returned to work, there was a flyer in my mailbox, and it announced an Aboriginal writing contest, and I thought it was a sign. So that evening when I got home from work, I emailed Grandma Josephine, and I asked her if she would allow me to tell her story. And the next day, on January 11th, 2015, she wrote back, and I'm going to share that letter with you. Twin, you are my twin for a reason. I sincerely believe you are doing what we have been wanting to do for a long time. Spider Woman is doing her weaving, believe that. The art you do has been recognized by the weavers. Now it is time for you to weave your magic. You have the guts to do it. You have the talent right before you. You have the support of your partner. You have my blessing, and I ask for nothing. I only want you to do what I would have done, and then in caps, for the water, for the children. You can do it. You have my blessing. I now know why I have not responded to writers who want my input into their writings. You are the one to do the work. Now get to it. I have much on my own plate with water walking and talking to people. I always get choked up the last line. You, on the other hand, my twin, you do what you know best. Have faith, belief, and above all, courage. I am with you always. Love you, Dotsuke. Almost made it through that time. So you have to have some pretty strong whys to get yourself in a copper pail full of water across country. Most of us can't even get ourselves to walk to the grocery store and back with one bag of groceries, or take a flight of stairs instead of taking the elevator. The water walkers walked with a copper vessel of water up mountains during snowstorms, blizzards, during ice storms. So strong was their love for us and creation and for future generations. Trees don't need us to reach for the sky, berries don't need us to grow, and water doesn't need us to flow. We've forgotten our place in creation. We're dependent on all of our relatives' good health. We harm them and we harm ourselves. We think we're in control, and then frost hits our gardens, killing all the blossoms that promised fruit, or a drought fries our manicured lawns, or there's wildfires, or tornadoes rip through, like in Florida this afternoon. I saw that there was an outbreak of 10 tornadoes going through, or Helene and Milton show up. I'm sure you all join me in sending your prayers to Florida tonight and to those struggling after Helene. Prayers for all of our relatives, including their pets, all the farm animals and wildlife and plants and birds, trees, and fish. I watched a video yesterday that showed two beehives, the big white boxes, rushing down a flooded river. And I hadn't thought about them, and it kind of hit me hard at the moment. Nokomis Josephine-ba Mandamin and the Mother Earth Water Walkers have inspired thousands and thousands of people. Her first walk, she was 60, and when 4 of them set off around Lake Superior, and her last walk in 2017, she was 74, and she had Parkinson's. And she said over 1,000 people joined them in that walk. And she asked everyone she met the same thing she was asked: what are you going to do about it? So I'm going to show you a few more people here that were inspired to do the work, to give you some ideas. This is Sharon Day. And on the left, she's holding the Eagle staff for Malvina. Malvina is Josephine-ba's sister, who was almost on every walk of hers. And Sharon's also to my left. You're looking at the screen. She's on my right, and she has the sunglasses on. Sharon's 72 years old now, and she does tons of walks. And here's a map of all the water walks she's done. I haven't added this year's on there. They walked the St. Croix River this year, so I have to add that one on there. But to date, she's led 27 water walks for various lakes and rivers across the lower half of Turtle Island. And last year, she walked around with the Nibi walkers. They walked around Lake Superior, and that was the 20th anniversary. Grandma Josephine had did it 20 years before. And that walk last year was 34 days and 2.5 million footsteps and prayers for Lake Superior. And in the bottom right photo, you can see Andrew Mandamin with Sharon. That's Grandma Josephine's husband. And then in the bottom, you can see Josephine and Sharon together. And then on the left, you can see all the youth that came out on the last day of the water walk around Lake Superior. And this is a collage I did at the end of the walk of every day when at the end of the day, they take a touchdown photo. So these are all the touchdown photos from the Lake Superior walk last year. And water walks aren't all serious. So I did this little illustration too at the end of the Lake Superior walk. And I showed some of the relatives that they met along their route. And then this is Sharon Manitowabi, again, with Andrew Mandamin, Josephine-ba's husband. And that photo was from the Lake Superior water walk when they were walking through Thunder Bay. But this year, Sharon led her first water walk, and they walked around Lake Huron. And next year, they have plans to walk around Lake Michigan. So they walked 1,672 kilometers or 1,039 miles in 29 days for Lake Huron this summer. I also spot for other walks. This is Elder Shirley Williams and Liz Osalamic. And their water walks are called Nibi Imosadamajig, and that means those who walk for the water. And also Shirley was the one who translated both of my books, The Nibi is Water and The Water Walker. And another thing about Shirley is that her and Josephine-ba went to residential school together at the Spanish residential school for girls. And Shirley was also the first Indigenous woman in Canada to be recognized as a university professor because of her traditional knowledge. So this is the girl in the striped dress there. That's Stephanie Woodworth. And a lot of people were asking Grandma Josephine, how many water walks do you think there have been since you started walking that you inspired? And so Stephanie did some research. In 2018, she found that there were 136 water walks. They were either Mother Earth water walks, or they were related to them, or they were of similar purpose, but maybe not with the Medallion protocols. Yeah, 136, I said that right. This is another group. This year, the year before Grandma Josephine went to the spirit world, Thunder Bay Elementary School teacher Peter Cameron, at the bottom of the screen there, through a series of serendipitous moments, he was able to contact me, and he invited me and Grandma Josephine to his grade 5-6 classroom in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And his students introduced us that day as the junior water walkers, and they told us all the things that they were learning about the Great Lakes and the project they were working on. And through technology, his students were inviting other classrooms around the Great Lakes and around the world to join them in learning about the water that they live near. And since That time, junior water walkers around the world have been, their 4 pillars are connecting, reflecting, respecting, and protecting the water near their schools and homes. And last count, which was World Water Day this year, there were 293 classrooms that were registered. But another thing they've been doing is their water box program, and you can learn more about it on their website. And so far there are 120 water boxes that have went out into the world, thanks to the students at Pope John Paul Senior Elementary School in Thunder Bay, where Peter works. And water boxes are handcrafted local white cedar boxes built by the native language classes and the Junior Water Walkers Club. And the water boxes contain, I need to drink water, sorry. The water boxes contain the Water Walker book, and then there's a journal inside with the students' art on it, and also a letter inside from the creator of that box. And then there's a few other small gifts. And then they are filled with respect, love, and hope for Nibi. And like water, the water boxes are intended to keep moving. So once they're sent to a classroom and wherever in whatever part of the world, it's hopefully the next year that class passes that water box onto another class, so that it keeps moving around the world. So when our youth are given the opportunity to strengthen their relationship with water, you never know where this will lead them. I'd like to introduce you to a young warrior that walked during the Turtle Island 4 Directions Water Walk, and he began his work the same year as me. And 3 generations of his family, the Dorsey Lopez's, walked from Yakima Nation Reservation all the way to Lake Superior. And that's just east of the mountains out west. His family knew the importance of this walk, and they took their sons out of school so that they could be part of it. And so this is 7-year-old Mayengan Surratt. He's a member of Batchewana First Nation, and actually his dad is too, which is just right beside Sault Ste. Marie here where I live. So 7-year-old Mayengan Surratt, he took his turn carrying the Eagle staff for the grandmothers that year, and his older brother Phoenix, who was 11 at the time, and his younger brother Bear, who was 3, also walked for the water that year. Now, Mayengan is 20 years old, and last year he began, I'm so proud of this guy. Last year, he began university at Central Michigan U, and he was awarded a full 4-year ride scholarship, and he's studying the environment, focusing on the Great Lakes. So I'm really proud of him and grateful to his family for all the footsteps that they laid across Turtle Island for Nibi and for future generations. So I'm going to wrap up now with this short video that I made for day 16. For my day 16 evening Facebook post for the Lake Huron Water Walkers this summer. And I made one of these almost every night before it hit in the hay. And this day they were carrying the water from Goderich to Grand Bend in Ontario. And they walked 14.5 hours and 74.2 kilometers or 46.1 miles. And they walked from 4:30 in the morning till 7 p.m. And their average walking speed was 4.8 kilometers per hour, and their max speed was 5.4 kilometers per hour. And that day they laid down 102,436 footsteps. And every one of them was a prayer for Lake Huron. And the next day, their plan was to touch up at 3 a.m. So that they could make it to the Sarnia-Port Huron border before nightfall. So I'll start this now. There's music with it if you want to turn your speakers on. So that's all I have for you tonight. There's just a few more pictures. Those are just Grandma Josephine's bunny slippers that I bought her, that I talk about in the book. And there we are. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Well, I'm gobsmacked. I'm just speechless, Joanne. When
I
you were,
can't see.
uh,
Sorry.
that's okay. We're getting this computer all figured out. It looks like you're still sharing, Joanne. So maybe,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think that's what
I won't bring my screen over.
Did I
Stop
do?
share. Stop share. Let me
Yeah.
try that.
There we go. I think we're almost there.
Okay, stop share.
There we go. Oh,
Sorry.
Joanne, I'm very speechless. I had plans to ask you lots of questions. I see that Sean Nethercott had a question. She's one of our participants. So she asks, how can people learn how to participate in future water walks? Great question. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, there's lots of water walks on Facebook, and some of them are it depends where you live, because some of them really follow the Mandamin way of walking, and others invite all nations to walk with them. So it's you can join any water walk, and the most respectful thing to do is follow behind the lead water walkers and learn, and then if they're comfortable, they'll hand off the pail to you. So most of the time we're on Facebook, so that's where a
Yeah.
lot of water walkers that's where a lot of water walkers are. They have their own websites too. Like if you're in the States, nibbiwalk.org, that's Sharon Day's website. And then the Water is Calling is the Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, Sharon website. And then there are quite a few. There's a couple more that I can't think right off the top of my head, but.
And I'll gather the links that you shared, nibbiwalk.org, and yeah. So I love this question from Anna. She logged in a few minutes late, but she was wondering if there's an audiobook plan for your book, where they'll read in Ojibwe Moan or Anishinaabe-Moan. Is that a plan? It would be helpful to hear that, I think.
I know they've talked about it, but I haven't heard anything in a while. So yeah. So
have you ever thought of reading it, doing a reading yourself?
Yeah, I have, but the contracts and stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
The messy part of being a book author, right?
Yeah. So and my Anishinaabe one is not very good. So I've had my niece read parts of it for me. But yeah.
So Fawn online here asks, would you get it translated into Mohawk?
Oh, well, there's quite a few languages. I was hoping for Spanish and Cree, and yeah, that would be great. We just if the publisher can find the money, they will do it. So I can add that one to the list. I'll write them tomorrow and tell them that here's another one for you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that question. So when you were speaking, I just could not stop thinking of the word courage. I really, from the start of when you talked about the water walkers, courage, even you know, you're the coordinator in your home. What you do takes so much courage and commitment. I guess for all of us that are here that are interested in water walking, how is it that we can live up to this mission like the water walkers do and like you do? Like, how do we keep up with this mission? What can we do on our own, in our own worlds?
Well, I always say, what can you do? Like, I don't know what gifts you have. And first you have to build up your relationship with the water so that you have the whys on why you want to do it. And then like some of my friends make, sing for the water. Autumn Pelche, she's the young woman who speaks for the water. Lots of professors, teachers, librarians, teach people about water. So we all have different gifts. So you have to strengthen your relationship and then figure out what you're going to do to protect the water. And one thing that I like to share too, when I was in school with Nibi and Benet, he was one of our professors actually, besides being the Grand Chief of the Lodge. He used to say that when you learn something, it goes in here. But if you want to teach or share, it has to come from here. It has to come from your heart. So in whatever you're doing, you'll be more successful at it if you remember that. But you definitely have to start by building your own relationship, and then like water walks are Medewan led by grandmothers, right? So you have to find your own way to, because we all have different things that we're good at, right? I illustrate and draw and spot for water walkers. So yeah, different things.
I love thinking like that too when I think about working with children. That gives them so much agency on taking a direction, right? But first connecting them to the watershed. And I think your book does a great job of that, actually. Um, I'd love to ask this question because you're a writer and an illustrator, and um, I really appreciated learning the stories of the water walkers. And then can you just talk for a moment about how you took that experience and put it in these beautiful pictures? Like your pictures are just, you captured their spirits very well, I think. Now that I've learned more from you about the story of the water walkers, your pictures just really capture it. Did it come from a place? Did you just start drawing? How does it work? Or talk about the illustrations a bit.
Yeah, the illustrations were um like the whole book. I wrote it out in like chicken scratch, and then the someone asked me once how long did it take to write it, and it was like, well, it didn't take very long to write it at all, but it took me many years of working with Grandma Josephine. Like it took all that experience to write it. And the illustrations were kind of like, they're really bright and colorful, and those strong colors, like the water walkers are really strong. And I remember once I didn't realize I did this, but a lot of the there's not a lot of faces on the pictures, and I didn't even realize I did that until I think it was at our very at the book launch in Toronto. And one of the kids asked me why they don't have faces, and I'm like, what? And they had to go through the book and show me. And then I thought about it for a minute, and then I just said actions speak louder than words, because I didn't even know I did that actually, but it's true. Their actions do speak louder than words. And also, I think we were talking about this earlier, like how the text and illustrations go together, like whatever the illustrations can't say, the text does, and what I can't say with the text, the illustrations show. Like there's a lot of teachings in the illustrations that I don't write about, but if you're from that nation, you would recognize, some of the regalia or whatever, right, in your own community. So yeah, so did I answer that?
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking at the water walker over your shoulder and thinking about what you just said. And yes, kids are so observant. I honestly, I didn't really notice they didn't really have faces. I guess maybe because when I see they have eyes, then I just see a whole face, right? And that's what's so beautiful about that image too. Um, so it's actually already 7, and so I want to respect people's time as well as your time. But can you give us a little glimpse into your future? Like, what are your next steps in terms of writing or capturing these stories?
I just submitted a manuscript, another children's book to Second Story Press that they're looking at, and it's about my friend Shirley Horn, who went to residential school,
Mhm.
and Grandma Josephine went to residential school too. I think I mentioned that. And then, I mean, that's a really hard topic to work on. So my next book is going to be lighter. It's going to, I talked to Peter briefly about it. And so I'm going to write a book about the junior water walkers. And I'm super
Oh,
excited about that one because it's just, yeah, the kids are doing great work. I'm really excited to share
yeah.
that. Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm hoping those that are doing Great Lakes Great Read and working with youth will really consider joining that movement because it really is beautiful. And, for the audience, um, I would tell them that, Peter is just a wonderful human and he's happy to talk by email if anybody um, would like to talk to him about what inspired him and how he's gone forward with it. Fawn just shared one more little note here. And Fawn, I'm going to apologize. My pronunciation is pretty literal, but it says, I'm from Akwesasne, Mohawk Territory, and it would be great to include in our Mohawk Immersion School and other schools here in the territory. It would be greatly appreciated. Nyawin, thank you. And I think perhaps she's talking
Mhm.
about your future book. So clearly, I think you're going to write something that the world is ready for. So it is 7:02. I hate to say goodbye to our conversation, but we'll continue talking. We'll continue having Joanne's presence in our lives. And if you have any questions offline, if you want to send them to me, I can see what we can do in terms of getting answers or reflections from Joanne. But thank you especially for sharing those stories about the water walker, because I'm just, it's going to sit with me for a long time to as you say, I'm a librarian and educator, and I do this work, and um, that those water walker stories just inspired me again to continue doing it. I think it's something that anyone here on listening hopefully has the same inspiration to. So Miigwech, Joanne, I'm really grateful, and thank you for all of you for coming, and we'll talk soon. Bye bye.
Miigwech, everyone.